No one uses phone booths anymore. They're relics. Rusting reminders of a time when voices travelled over cables instead of airwaves. But in the small, fog-drenched town of Dunbridge, one still stood, battered and forgotten, near the corner of Alder Street and Mill Road. People passed it daily without a glance, except one man, Raymond Beck, 47, a former night shift mechanic and now a night janitor, lived a solitary life. After his divorce and his son's estrangement, he found solace in routine. One foggy Thursday night, while walking home from the bus stop, he heard something, a sharp ring. Not his cell phone, not anyone else's. It came from the old phone booth, nestled beside a flickering street lamp. He stopped, heart nudging his ribs. The booth hadn't worked in years. Curiosity, a dying but dangerous instinct, got the better of him. The ringing stopped the moment he touched the glass. Inside, it was dark, the receiver dangling slightly. Something compelled him to pick it up. Static first, then a voice. "Ray, can you hear me?" A woman's whisper, trembling and low. His throat went dry. "Who is this? Please, help me. I don't know where I am. It's dark. There's blood. So much blood." Ray froze. The line crackled, and then silence. He stood there for minutes, confusion knotting his thoughts. Was it a prank? A leftover recording from a broken line? He stepped away, glancing around. The street was empty, save for the low hum of wind. That night, sleep evaded him. The voice had felt real. Too real. And the way it said his name, not like a stranger, more like someone who knew him. He told himself he wouldn't go back, that it was just a glitch. But the next night, same time, the phone rang again. This time, her voice was weaker. "He's coming back. He's angry. I think he saw me call you. Please, Ray. Help me. Find me." He begged her for a name, a location, anything. All she could repeat was, "Please don't hang up. He hears when the line goes quiet." The call ended with a high-pitched screech that made Ray stumble backward. He checked the booth. No wires, no dial tone, nothing. Just a dead relic. Yet, it called him. Ray began researching. He asked around town, checked newspaper archives, even scoured online forums. He found nothing until he spoke to an old librarian named Gwen. Her face paled when he described the calls. There was a girl, 20 years ago, went missing near that booth. Police said it was a runaway case, but I remember the blood. Her name was Lydia. The name echoed like a drum in his chest. Lydia. He didn't know why, but it stirred something deep inside. A memory he couldn't place. That night, the phone rang again. Lydia. This time, she sobbed. "He locked me in the crawl space. I can't move. The smell. I think it's other girls. Please, Ray. Please, remember me." His obsession took hold. He stopped working, stopped eating right, and began mapping every missing girl in the county from the last 30 years. The pattern disturbed him. All had disappeared within a 5-mile radius of the booth. That Saturday, he brought tools, a flashlight, gloves, bolt cutters. He examined the booth inside and out. Nothing, but beneath the grime-covered floor, he found a panel, bolted shut. With effort, he pried it open, revealing a hollow space leading underground. The scent hit him first, rot and rust. Then came the sound, a soft whisper. "Ray, you found me." Crawling into that tunnel was like descending into the lungs of something foul. It twisted under the road, lined with cracked tiles and old bones. He found a small chamber, pale scratch marks along the walls, a broken mirror, and chains. And in the corner, a skeleton in a tattered dress. Clutched in her hand, a phone receiver. Ray fell to his knees. A cold breeze swept past him, despite the enclosed space. Behind him, the static hissed again. "I'm free now," Lydia whispered. "You heard me, when no one else did." But then, a second voice growled through the static. Low, male, furious. "You shouldn't have come down here." Ray turned, flashlight shaking. The tunnel behind him was pitch black. Something moved. Heavy steps. Dragging chains. Panic surged. He scrambled back through the passage, heart thundering. As he reached the booth, the receiver began to ring again. He slammed the door shut behind him, gasping for air. "Ray, don't leave me," Lydia's voice cried. But this time, he knew if he answered again, he might never leave. The ringing continued, longer, louder, more desperate, and in the fog outside, shapes began to form, thin, swaying figures with no faces. He ran, didn't look back. For days, he stayed indoors, curtains drawn. The calls didn't stop. His cell rang with blocked numbers, his home phone. Even the radio once whispered his name. Then came the final night. His TV flickered on by itself. On screen, grainy footage of the phone booth. A figure inside. Him. The receiver lifted. He watched as his own mouth moved, as if repeating something. Then he turned to the screen, to him. "Pick up, Ray. You promised." It was around 11:30 p.m. when Martin Rowe, a divorced 47-year-old insurance broker, stepped out of the leaky tap, a dimly lit pub tucked in a quiet street of Lewisham, South London. His head buzzed with the 3 pints of ale he downed, and the cold April breeze biting through his coat made him shiver. He checked his phone. Dead. Of course. No battery, no backup, and no cab in sight. He scanned the street and spotted something he hadn't used in over a decade. A red telephone booth standing crooked under a flickering streetlight. It stood there like an artifact, forgotten and rusted, with its glass smeared and cracked. Martin chuckled at the sight. Who even uses these anymore, he thought. Still, he needed to call a cab, and this was his only option. As he pushed open the heavy door, a foul stench, mildew and something metallic, wafted out. The air inside felt wrong, stagnant. He hesitated, but with no better alternative, he stepped in and picked up the receiver. The moment Martin placed the receiver to his ear, he froze. There was no dial tone, just breathing, deep, slow, almost animalistic. He blinked, thinking it must be his imagination, but the sound persisted. Then a voice whispered, "Don't hang up, Martin." His gut turned icy. He looked around, expecting a prank, a speaker maybe, but the booth was empty. "Who is this?" he asked, throat dry. The line crackled. "You left something behind 10 years ago," the voice replied, distant yet familiar. Martin's fingers went numb around the receiver. He hadn't told anyone about that night, that accident, the girl, the screams. It was buried, or so he thought. "What do you want?" he snapped. Silence followed, then a soft, mocking chuckle. Payment. Martin dropped the receiver and stumbled out of the booth, his breath fogging up the cold air. He felt like throwing up. Across the street, everything was dark. No cars, no pedestrians. Only that damn booth glowing red behind him like a wound. He reached into his coat, found a cigarette with shaking hands, and lit it. "It's in your head," he told himself. Stress, beer, lack of sleep. But as he turned to walk away, the phone in the booth began to ring. Not just once, not twice, a persistent, shrill ring that drilled into his skull. He ignored it, walked faster. It rang again. Then, his mobile buzzed in his pocket. Impossible. He had checked it. It was dead. Trembling, Martin pulled it out. The screen lit up with one name. Eleanor. His blood ran cold. Eleanor was his daughter. She died in 2013, the same night he crashed the car, drunk, after a business party. She had begged him not to drive. He ignored her. The guilt had eaten him alive ever since. And now, her name was on the screen, ringing. With trembling fingers, he answered, "Hello?" There was no reply, just the same breathing. Then, a child's giggle. Martin dropped the phone. His knees buckled, and he leaned against a wall to steady himself. This can't be real. He looked around, desperate for anyone. A passerby, a police car, anything. But Lewisham was eerily empty. Then came the sound of footsteps. Slow, scraping, from behind. He turned. Nothing. But the booth door was wide open now, though he remembered slamming it shut. And inside was no longer the booth he'd entered. Through the glass, he could see something else. Wallpaper, a hallway. It looked like his old house, the one they'd sold after Eleanor's death. His breath caught. He moved closer, peering through the foggy glass. A small figure darted past the booth's interior. A girl, brown curls, blue dress, just like Eleanor's school uniform. Martin's heart pounded against his ribs. "No, please no," he muttered. Then the voice returned, this time from behind him. "You said you'd protect her." He spun around. No one. But now the street around him had changed. Buildings decayed, the streetlight flickered wildly, and the air turned thick, like breathing through cotton. He looked down. His shoes were wet. The street was gone, replaced by water, mud. The booth began to glow brighter. He stepped back, slipping slightly. Through the glass, the scene had changed again. Now it was the crash site. Twisted metal, blood on the dashboard, his own face in the driver's seat, slumped and drunk. Martin screamed, but no sound came out. He looked around. The pub was gone. The alley was gone. He was alone in a memory made real. Then the receiver floated up, hanging mid-air inside the booth, swinging slowly, ringing. Desperate to end it, Martin charged into the booth, grabbed the receiver and yelled, "What do you want from me?" A chorus of voices answered, all distorted versions of Eleanor's laughter, crying and screams. "Say it," they chanted. "Say what you did." Martin sobbed. "I'm sorry. I killed her. I shouldn't have driven. I was drunk. I was stupid. I deserved this." The voices fell silent. For a moment, he heard only his breathing. Then one final whisper. Too late. The door slammed shut. The booth was ice cold now. The glass darkened. He tried to push the door, but it wouldn't budge. Outside, things moved in the shadows. tall, in faceless figures. The booth began to sink, into the street, into the water, into the dark. He screamed until his throat tore, until the only sound left was a low, guttural bubbling. By dawn, the booth was empty again. No signs of Martin, just the receiver, swinging, still ringing. It started on a stormy Thursday evening, the kind where even streetlights flickered as if unsure they should stay on. Jonathan Carter, a 48-year-old accountant from Brighton, had taken a wrong turn on his way back from a late client meeting. His phone battery was dead, GPS gone. Rain hammered his windshield like angry fists, blurring everything outside into grey streaks. Then, out of nowhere, he saw it, a red telephone booth standing crooked at the edge of an overgrown park, illuminated by a flickering lamppost. Something about it pulled him in. Maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe it was the creeping unease of not being connected in a digital world. He parked the car, grabbed his soaked coat, and made his way toward it. The moment he stepped inside, the wind seemed to hush. It was oddly warm in there, dry, clean even. Jonathan reached for the receiver, almost laughing at himself. Who would he even call? He dialed his home number by memory, expecting it to ring into oblivion. But to his surprise, it connected. Immediately. Not only that, but someone answered. "Hello," the voice said. But it wasn't his wife. It was him. His own voice, slightly older, raspier. "Jonathan, you have to listen carefully. Leave the booth now. Do not look at your reflection. And whatever you do, don't answer if it calls again." His heart thudded. He slammed the receiver down, staring at it as if it had bitten him. A moment later, the phone rang again. He stared at it, frozen. The ring was sharp, metallic, echoing like it came from inside his skull. When he turned to leave, the door wouldn't budge. The booth's glass fogged slightly as he pressed against it. A man in a long coat passed by without glancing at him. Jonathan banged on the glass. "Hey, I'm stuck in here," he yelled, but no one seemed to see him, not even the man who walked mere inches from the booth. He turned around and nearly screamed. The glass inside the booth was now reflective. There were no mirrors in it before, and yet every panel showed his reflection. Only his reflection wasn't moving like him. It tilted its head slowly, smiling, a smile Jonathan knew he wasn't making. Desperate, he yanked the phone off the hook again, dial tone. He punched in random numbers, but they rang to nothing, or worse. Static-filled whispers. Finally, a voice answered. "You've already made the call. Now it's your turn to listen." Suddenly, the static grew louder. He clutched his ears. The reflections in the glass began to blur, shifting into faces. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Some were familiar. A colleague, his old school friend, his dead father. They mouthed words he couldn't hear over the static, but he felt them. "Why did you leave us? You shouldn't have called." Panic clawed at his chest. He banged his fists on the door. No one looked, no one heard. The world outside seemed slower now, like it was melting. Trees no longer moved with the wind. The rain stopped mid-air, hanging like beads of glass. Then the phone rang again. He didn't want to pick up, but his hand moved on its own. When he lifted the receiver, the voice said, "Someone must take your place. Choose or remain." He sobbed. "What do you mean?" "Choose or remain." Jonathan's mind raced. He thought of strangers, of people he hated. Could he damn someone else just to be free? The faces in the glass were watching, waiting. Then he thought of an old man who lived alone in his building. No family, no one would miss him. He whispered the name. The line went silent. The booth door clicked. He fell out onto the wet pavement, gasping like he'd been underwater. The street was alive again. People walked, cars passed, the rain resumed. When he looked back, the booth was empty, clean, as if nothing had happened. Weeks passed. He tried to forget, but the booth haunted him. He avoided that park, avoided even looking at red booths. But one night, the news showed a bizarre story. A man had been found dead in a telephone booth, eyes wide, mouth frozen mid-scream. Police ruled it a heart attack. Jonathan knew better. He tried to explain it to his wife, but the words failed him. How do you explain a cursed call? A soul trade? He stared at his reflection more these days, just to be sure it moved when he did. Then, one rainy evening, his home phone rang. He answered. No one spoke, but in the background was the sound of static. The static persisted, a low hiss that seemed to stretch beyond the phone. Jonathan didn't hang up. He held the receiver close, as if hypnotized. Then, faintly, he heard something. Breathing. Not fast or panicked. Slow. Steady. Like someone standing very close to him. "Who is this?" he whispered. The static warped and shifted until it formed a familiar sentence. "You gave one, now give another." His grip tightened. "No, I won't. I won't do this again." But the voice responded with eerie calm. "You already did." The lights in the house flickered. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway, slow, deliberate. But he lived alone that night. His wife was away visiting her sister. The television turned on by itself. The screen showed static first, then an image, a live feed of the red phone booth. Inside it, a child stood, crying, alone. Jonathan gasped. "No," he whispered. "I didn't choose a child." The voice in the phone answered, "But you let us choose." He dropped the phone. It didn't break. It kept ringing. And on the screen, the child looked up, right at him.